Well, we're going to see what happens. It'll happen, but we're going to, we'll see how things work out. It might happen with them. But, so the UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line because they've really taken advantage of us. And, you know, we have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They take almost nothing. But I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
The European Union is an atrocity in trade. These words, straight from Donald Trump's mouth, have sent shockwaves through international markets. But is he right? In this video, we'll break down the facts behind Trump's explosive statement. We'll examine the trade imbalances, the potential for tariffs, and what it all means for you. Are we on the brink of a trade war, or is this just tough talk? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Trump's fiery rhetoric against the European Union has set the stage for a potential trade showdown. His claim that the EU is an atrocity in trade has left many wondering. Is there any truth to this bold statement, or is it just another example of Trump's characteristic hyperbole? Let's break down the numbers. Trump asserts that the United States has a $300 billion trade deficit with the EU. On the surface, this figure seems staggering and might lead one to believe that the EU is indeed taking advantage of America. However, the reality of trade deficits is far more complex than Trump's simplistic portrayal suggests. Some economists argue that trade deficits aren't inherently negative. In fact, they can be a sign of a robust economy where consumers have the purchasing power to buy foreign goods. It's not a zero-sum game where one side wins and the other loses. The flow of goods and services across borders can create jobs, foster innovation, and lead to economic growth on both sides of the Atlantic. The EU, for its part, contends that American companies benefit significantly from access to European markets. This access translates into increased sales and profits for US businesses operating within the EU. It's a symbiotic relationship that has developed over decades, with both sides reaping rewards from the partnership. But Trump isn't buying it. His counter-argument focuses on what he perceives as unfair EU tariffs, particularly on American cars and agricultural products. He argues that these tariffs create an uneven playing field, putting American businesses at a disadvantage. It's a point that resonates with many of his supporters, who feel that the US has been getting the short end of the stick in international trade deals. The question now is, what happens if Trump decides to follow through on his threats and impose new tariffs on European goods? The potential consequences could be far-reaching and unpredictable. Such a move could escalate trade tensions and lead to retaliatory measures from the EU, potentially harming both economies. It's a high-stakes game of chicken, with billions of dollars and countless jobs hanging in the balance. Trump's labeling of the EU trade relationship as an atrocity is a stark indicator of his dissatisfaction with the status quo. But is this just tough talk designed to bring the EU to the negotiating table, or is it a genuine threat of impending trade war? The answer to this question could shape the future of transatlantic trade for years to come. As the dust settles on Trump's blistering attack on the European Union, attention turns to an unexpected player in this high-stakes game of international trade, the United Kingdom. Prime Minister Starmer finds himself in a precarious position, caught between the rock of EU relations and the hard place of Trump's America First policy. It's a diplomatic tightrope walk that would make even the most seasoned politicians break into a cold sweat. Trump's warning to the UK about potential tariffs has thrown a wrench into Starmer's carefully laid plans. The special relationship between the two nations suddenly doesn't seem so special anymore. But here's the kicker. While Trump lambasts the EU as an atrocity in trade, he's leaving the door open for a deal with the UK. I think that one could be worked out, he says, dangling the carrot of a potential trade agreement. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The real question is, what's Trump's endgame? Is he genuinely interested in fostering better trade relations with the UK? Or is this just another move in his grand chess game against the EU? The answer might lie in the complex web of post-Brexit trade ambitions and Trump's aggressive stance on international commerce. Starmer's balancing act is nothing short of Herculean. On one side, he's trying to mend fences with the EU, seeking a closer relationship that could benefit British businesses. On the other, he's facing Trump's unpredictable rhetoric and the looming threat of tariffs. It's a classic case of being stuck between a rock and a hard place, with the added pressure of knowing that any misstep could have far-reaching consequences for the UK economy. Trump's mixed signals aren't making Starmer's job any easier. One moment, he's praising the British Prime Minister. The next, he's threatening tariffs. It's like trying to dance with a partner who keeps changing the rhythm. The stakes for Britain couldn't be higher. Can they afford to anger either the US or the EU? The answer is a resounding no, but threading this needle seems almost impossible. The question on everyone's mind is whether the UK is being used as a pawn in Trump's larger game against the EU. By offering the possibility of a trade deal with Britain, Trump might be trying to drive a wedge between the UK and its European neighbors. It's a clever strategy if that's indeed the plan, but it puts Britain in an unenviable position, forced to choose between its largest trading partner and the world's biggest economy. So, what's the way forward for Starmer and the UK? There's no easy answer. They'll need to navigate these treacherous waters with extreme caution, balancing their economic interests with diplomatic finesse. It's a high-wire act that will require all of Starmer's political skill and then some. As the dust settles on Trump's explosive remarks, the future of transatlantic trade hangs in the balance. The European Union faces a critical decision: stand firm against Trump's accusations or make concessions to avoid a potentially devastating trade war. Meanwhile, the UK finds itself in a precarious position, caught between its European neighbors and the promise of a US trade deal. The global economy watches with bated breath as this high-stakes game unfolds. History has shown us that trade wars can have far-reaching consequences, impacting everything from consumer prices to global supply chains. The US-China trade war serves as a stark reminder of how quickly these conflicts can escalate and reshape international markets.